The article Jeff Foxworthy's Redneck Humor and the Boundaries of Middle-Class American Whiteness by J.D. Thomas focuses on redneck culture explored through Jeff Foxworthy's jokes. There are complex boundaries that draw the line between the redneck and non-redneck, shown through specific coding embedded in jokes to make fun of rural white culture.
The article, in short, examines the boundaries that produce the interracial variability within white culture. This was done by examining all of Jeff Foxworthy's redneck jokes. 300+ jokes were analyzed in this research. Social codes were then assigned and used throughout the research as a way to section off what the jokes are portraying and what their depiction behind them really was. These codes were then used to find similarities and differences between Foxworthy's humor and jokes thrown at rural whites during the eugenics era, when redneck was a word to describe the laborers that would wear red bandanas in protest. The thesis of the article is that popular culture has helped rework the redneck culture that used to signify poor whites in the South.
The study of so-called whiteness is focused mainly on the roles of power and structural inequality. White America, especially in today's times, is thought to be synonymous with supremacy and terror. It's almost impossible to look past what our history is. White identity can be established by things such as geographic region, gender, as well as socioeconomic class. In a country like America, the truth is that the whites are shown to have steadier income and more freedom than people of other races. Studies have shown that white America is ignorant to these privileges they have, or they at least pretend to be. Thomas uses the term symbolic pollution to describe a certain type of white, rednecks, which is in itself an ambiguous identity. It stands out from what we used to consider conventional whiteness and has taken over the term in the last couple of years. These rednecks are a certain stereotype we put on white people. The drunk hillbilly who drives a truck and lives in the woods is used by many people when they think of a redneck. The social divide between city whiteness and rural whiteness is getting larger by the day, and at this point it's almost like rednecks can be seen as a separate race altogether.
The data was collected by looking at a set of about 300 jokes posted on the website Country Humor, used in Jeff Foxworthy's skits while doing stand-up comedy. Each joke was categorized into 4 sets by their topic: lifestyle and fashion, rural living, sex and gender, and poverty. Each joke has a different type of humor that requires basic or specific knowledge of redneck life. There are literal, symbolic, and common sense references in the jokes that are then coded into one of the 4 categories. Codes, in this case, were used to identify patterns and similarities between humorized redneck behavior and actual redneck behavior. The codes focus on subject and object agreement within Foxworthy's jokes, a key component to understanding the humor because it will differentiate redneck identity from normal behavior. In Foxworthy's "You might be a redneck if" jokes, the word "you" is the subject and the object is the punchline of the joke. Another way to provide humor is through symbolic pollution, which is also coded. Pollution codes typically draw a line between different types of people, separated by opposites. In this case, rednecks may be defined as dirty versus clean, uncivilized versus civilized, and so on. When Foxworthy makes a joke having to do with an outsider turning away from redneck culture due to voluntary uncleanliness, the joke then becomes associated with all of the negative meanings that might have to do with being dirty. Codes with pollution follow 2 patterns, either being inappropriate or excessively juxtaposing. Juxtaposition in this case is when Foxworthy would mention or imply 2 different social norms and face them to each other for the audience to find humorous. This would intentionally highlight the differences in redneck culture versus a social norm, causing pollution and allow for coding.
There are 3 research questions that are being asked in this article. They are as follows. How is redneck defined according to Foxworthy humor? How does this humor construct the boundaries between the redneck and non-redneck? And do the boundaries utilized in this humor help us understand the production and maintenance of more normative mainstream whiteness? To answer these questions, Thomas used a set of 4 categories to describe what each joke meant or the depiction behind them. These 4 categories, again, were lifestyle and fashion, rural living, sex and gender, and poverty. Research was done after separating the jokes into these 4 categories.
Problems in rural areas such as sexual and gender deviance has led to dysfunctional families and eventually immoral and trashy behavior. These people turn into outsiders and are shunned by the rest of society for being different than them. This outsider fails to live up to modern whiteness, which is used to protect modern whiteness from intraracial threats to its identity. The upper-class white America doesn't want its reputation to be tarnished by redneck America. This boundary between whiteness creates a type of social class divide, and brings upon the question, is the white identity constructed solely in opposition to racial minorities? However, we can say due to this research that it was constructed in opposition to redness, an identity that has mainly negative connotations with pre-modern rusticity. This redness takes form in the rednecks we see portrayed today, equipped with flannel shirts and alcohol. We view these people as a different kind of American, and we use this specific term to further ourselves away from them.
This article consisted of a singular comedian, and it would be beneficial to include different comedians who focus on the same humor, like those in Blue Collar TV, as a whole, which is a television show that focused completely on redneck humor. Although it was simpler to code the jokes because they were in the same if-then format, there are different comedians who might have the same view on redneck humor and behavior, and it might provide a wider range of what a redneck can be defined as.